What is your first memory of voting? Huh. Well, my first memory of voting wasn't that great. My mom took me for the first time to go vote with her after I turned 18. And unfortunately, because her English wasn't that great, they didn't believe that she was a citizen. So they gave her a really hard time, even though that's the same voting location she had been to several election cycles. So my mom, being the feisty woman that she is, went home, got proof of a utility bill at our address, and she came back, slammed it on the table, said, "Toma," which means take it in Spanish. And she still was able to vote that day, and so was I. But it was the first time that I really, really remember recognizing that how I look was different than how my mom looked, and how I was going to walk through this life was going to be different than hers. And I had to do everything in my power to make sure that my mom and so many other people like her never had to experience that kind of shame or embarrassment again.
My first memory of voting is not actually me voting. It is the first democratic election in the Republic of South Africa. When I lived there in 1994, at 10 years old, I saw President Nelson Mandela be elected. My parents participated in voter education all across the country through the work that my father was doing there in the 90s as a bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So that was my first view, my first experience with the power of voting, because at that time the people, Black people in South Africa, did not have the right to vote, and I got to see them vote for the very first time for the hero that is Nelson Mandela.
My first memory of voting was turning 18 and my parents bringing me to the election booth for the first time and grabbing dinner together. It was essentially a family tradition that we started and has continued to this day.
When did you decide to commit your career to civic engagement and organizing? This is a pretty easy one because it's not a job, it feels more like a calling. And I have 3 little girls, and every single morning when I look at their face, I know that I have to get up and put one foot in front of the other to make the world a little bit brighter.
In 2012, I graduated college and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my psychology degree. Barack Obama's campaign came to my campus looking for volunteers. And that year, marriage equality was on the ballot. As a young, queer, Latino person, I couldn't imagine what else I would be doing with my summer than making sure that Obama got elected again. I took an opportunity to volunteer 40 hours a week, knocking on doors in my neighborhood. And what I learned by having those conversations, a lot of voters only voted because I showed up. I couldn't believe it, and it worked. We won. From that moment on, I wanted to be a part of winning campaigns for the rest of my career because I knew one conversation will make all the difference.
I committed a career in civic engagement and organizing from the days when I became an intern in Washington, D.C. and got introduced to what politics and policy looked like. What I realized is that at that particular point in time, Asian American and Pacific Islanders were missing from the narrative, from the data, and also in the rooms where decisions were being made. Many times we were a forgotten community, and so that's when we realized that we really need to organize voters from our community to lean in and to actually claim our power.
I decided to commit my career to civic engagement organizing after the 2016 elections. I realized that people needed to understand their power and the fact that voting is the gateway to all of our issues. Voting literally is human rights. So if you care about any rights that we share in this country, you have to care about voting because everything starts at the ballot box. And I felt that I wanted to take my creativity, my thoughts, my power, and my passion to helping people understand their power.
So that's pretty easy for me. When I was 18 years old, I started as a community organizer. I looked around, I saw what was happening in my community, and I realized that change was not going to happen unless we started to build power, until we made the changes. And so myself and several other young people started a nonprofit organization called the Hartford Youth Peace Initiative, and 27 years later, here we are. I am still doing this work, and I still think that organizing and civic engagement is the most powerful tool for us to be able to create change in our communities.
I must admit, I'm an accidental advocate. And the reason I jumped into the ring of civic engagement was because I saw so many of my cousins and my family sitting it out while politicians were deciding to make decisions for them that were not just. And what I've been able to do now is recognize that the power of our vote makes a difference. Voting works.